Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast, episode 254. We're back, and we have two great guests again at the table. Jeff Lewis, and on the phone, Dave Anderson. And let's just get this rolling. We're going to have Jeff tell us a story about the Bryan brothers. I asked him the other day, and I said, we should put this on the podcast. All right, Jeff, get it rolling.
All right. Well, before that, I'd like to just tell my tennis joke.
Tell the tennis joke, okay.
It's real quick. Why don't fish like to go to the net when they play tennis?
Why don't fish like to go to the net when they play
I
tennis?
just messed it up.
Oh, start again. We don't have to edit it. Come on.
Why don't fish like to volley?
Why don't fish like to volley?
Because they're scared of the net.
Scared of the net.
Oh, good. I still got to laugh.
Still got to laugh.
I knew Dave would appreciate a good bad joke. I knew it.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, but
I like dodgeball.
But the Bryan brothers story, yeah, when I lived in Vegas, I ended up I didn't really sign up for it myself, but someone had this extra pass to a fantasy camp to go hang out with the Bryan brothers. And I thought, well, that would be cool. They offered it to me. I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. So I went out, and I was probably the only teaching pro, higher level player there. And the Bryan brothers, you just given this great experience. And it ends up they were playing king of the court doubles with the Bryan brothers. And, people line up, and it's Bob and Mike are at the net for a while. And people just have their eyes closed, hammering the ball as hard as they can at them. And they're just like, boop, boop, no one can beat them. So finally, they're like, all right, we got to split these guys up. So they split Bob and Mike up, and they're coming up in line for king of the court doubles. And I eventually end up at the net with Bob Bryan, and me and him are king. I'm like, this is cool. And Mike and a partner come up, and Mike kind of hits the ball, like he does to these other recreational players. And I'm like, me being me, I'm like, I'm going to impress these guys. So I close the net, and I pick off the volley, and Mike kind of gives me an eye and comes out and goes back around. They switch sides, and me and Bob continue to dominate because I'm holding them up. And Mike Bryan comes up with his partner again. They feed Mike Bryan a ball, and Mike Bryan hit the ball so hard at me that it almost knocked me over. But what happened was I put my racket up to protect my face and my chest so that I wouldn't be harmed seriously. And I ended up shanking the ball off 3 parts of the frame with so much backspin, it went over the net and then came back on my side. And people thought I did it on purpose or something. And I was still thought I was in heaven. I thought I saw my life flash before my eyes. And there's a picture, I had this picture on my Facebook of me giving Bob a high five, and Bob's his head's down. It's just what just happened? So it's pretty fun.
The Bryan brothers, one story leads to another. Raven Klaassen was playing world team tennis. And towards the end of the season, I know the format's changed so much over the years, the Bryan brothers came and played some of the big matches, but they weren't there in the beginning. But Raven, he was so nice to my son Connor. They're 6, 7 years apart. So when Raven was with us from age 18 to 22 and a half, I have to think back how young Connor was, but Connor was at a quali for the US Open or Australia or wherever, and then Raven was being the big brother and helping him out, and Connor was it's kind of shocking to him. He goes, he thought Raven was such a big guy. And he wasn't. He's not that big a guy. So anyway, with world team tennis, Raven had some wins over the Bryan brothers. One was in Australia where he got to the finals. He did lose to Mike Bryan in the finals of Wimbledon. But my son Connor was with Raven, and Mike Bryan goes, "You don't like that guy, do you?" And because he just had this thing for Raven. So when he was Raven's teammate, and Raven just knew in practice he's always trying to take his head off. But Raven, what he said was, "That's why I respect the Bryan brothers. They're so competitive."
Oh yeah.
And when they lose, it's they don't get over it. I mean, people say, well, you won this year, you lost last year. Did you forget last year? No, I will never forget last year. There are people that are really, really competitive. So many things with Klaassen. I remember when he's playing world team tennis, Taylor Fritz, not sure if it was his mother or father, but they asked Raven to help him learn how to volley. At that time, Raven was playing, and I said, Raven, you should have done it. Doesn't mean you had to be the full-time coach. I don't know the coach from Illinois that well, Brad Dancer, but I certainly know him because I had so much to do with Illinois tennis. But at one point, coming back to Raven, Kevin Anderson was looking for a coach. So I contacted Dancer, and they said he should hire Raven Clausen. They could play doubles together, and Clausen could coach him, because at that time, Clausen had started just playing doubles, and he was offered the job, but he turned that down. And I often think, I mean, Kevin was so close. He was in the Wimbledon final, US Open final. If someone had, taught him to volley a little bit better. But Dave, you have a joke? I got a joke. You got a joke for us, Anderson? Tennis joke?
No, but it's interesting with that Kevin Anderson story. Connor, your son Steve, he and Mikhail, they'd remember that run we have here, the Harper. The Harper run is about a mile run, and it was named after Louis Vosloo, who was a kid that South African that was here, and very, very good player. Turned pro too early, despite trying to get him to go to college for a few years to get his body built up. But he was an unbelievable volleyer, extremely well skilled. Just had, like Raven, had the system down front, back, and center. But he ended up on the road with Anderson for a long time. When you were talking about doubles, in a funny story, I never really played that well, but I played a couple of exhibitions, and we held the Rolex indoors at our club. And Steve, you know TJ Tisdale, who was just like Freddie Foreman. I mean, he just nonstop going, and so I got picked to play this exhibition at the Rolex, the National Indoors, and it was a pretty good crowd that was held at our club here and on the court, and we played it on a court that had been kind of constructed. And I am out there playing against Marty Reeson and I think Beverly Bowes and one of the former SMU female stars, Claire Sessions, and but I'm pretty nervous because I'm the weakest of the four players, and I'm having fun, and they threw a lob up over the head, and I ran and got it. And I didn't realize we were on the court that had no give at the back behind the tarp. And so I was just full steam, and I was thinking I had like a 3-foot give. And I ran, made a Bucharest backfire, and then just literally collided into the concrete, behind the tarp, and just fell flat back. And I remember looking over at TJ, first of all, and he was literally just doubled over. And then I saw these, top college players from every university, and I saw their faces, and I was thinking to myself, God, I wish I had somewhere to crawl under right now, because it was one of the most comical yet embarrassing kind of moments you could go through. But anyways, not a fun moment like Jeff, but the outcome wasn't quite the same. The Bucharest backfire didn't get over, and I think I had a mild concussion.
Oh, God.
But yeah.
Kevin Anderson hits 100 serves. He used to remember being told he hit 100 serves a day. I know his parents, they built a backboard in his backyard, but obviously great player. With TJ, yeah, what a personality. He was a great athlete. I remember my son, when he was younger, he spent a lot of time at your place, and then he went back, and I said, well, when you go back, you have to play TJ. First thing, Connor, he never had a water jug. He'd find a tennis ball can. That was his water jug. That was cooler. And I said, well, first thing he's going to do, he's going to kick over your water. I said, next time you pass, he's going to bump into you. He's definitely going to tell you that the old John McEnroe line from McEnroe on Lendl, I have more talent in my pinky than he has his whole body. So my son Connor called me. I go, how did you know that? I just know. That's what he's going to do. But I was out there one time, and the first thing I did is I found out where TJ was teaching, and I hid so I could just be listening to his lesson. Because then he started, chirping me, and I said, TJ, I sat in on that last lesson of yours. And he had got a little slack during that lesson. It was just hitting some balls. And he was like, uh-oh. Here's a tennis joke.
I remember that, yeah.
Here's a tennis joke for you. Hillsborough Community College. operated out there. I mean, you were there so much of the time, Jeff. I know you were there too, Dave. 15 years. But 10 of the years we run the junior college women's team. They don't have a men's team. And I think it was 5 years. We were in the finals. We only won it once. But it was part-time pay and full-time work. And so there's a huge athletic banquet. And, junior college certainly really dropped. So a lot of these coaches just felt like we were running a powerhouse because we were in the finals. And it really wasn't a powerhouse. There weren't that many teams. At one time in Florida, there was 32 junior college men's teams. Now I think they're back up to 2, but then it dropped to 0. So we went to the athletic director. A lot of times the athletic director of junior college doesn't really have the background in sports. Typically an athletic director, they're from football or basketball. So the athletic director, all the coaches are at a table, and the athletic director comes up and he goes, because we all have to give a little speech. And I really, for the most part, just was the director of tennis where somebody else really served as the head coach. But in this particular setting, I was the one who was going to give the speech. So he comes up and tells all the coaches, hey, the president of the university, president of the college is going to be here. No jokes. So it's my turn. The first thing I do when I get there, well, I want to start with a joke because I certainly would rather, get my tires pumped by the coaches. I wasn't really so concerned. Well, the athletic director, I don't want him to be mad at me. So here's the joke. I said, it was a young kid from Switzerland, and long before he was a tennis player, and I'm referring to Roger Federer, he was a yodeler. And he came to the United States to work on his vocal cords, and he had to go every weekend. He would hitchhike into the city to work with his expert who could help him with his vocal cords. But to do that, he had to work on a farm. And with the farm, the farmer had rules. Like any good farmer, he had a beautiful daughter. And the rule number 1 was you can't fool around with my daughter. So the summer was going along, and it's the first week, and he goes in and works with his vocal cords. I mean, Swiss yodeler, he's got to be louder. And the second weekend, the third weekend, so the summer's rolling along. But then the farmer walks into the barn, and he sees there's commotion up in the loft. And, it just is one of those things. I mean, we're keeping this PG-13, but I mean, the blouse comes down from the loft, and the farmer picks up very quickly, and he goes, "You're fooling around with my daughter." And Roger hears this, the yodeler, and he quickly, he gets dressed and he jumps down the ladder, and he's running down the farm road. And the farmer is irate because he broke the rule. He fooled around with his daughter. And he's going, "You fooled around with my daughter. You fooled around with my daughter." He's chasing him with a pitchfork. And the farmer, even though Roger was always fast, the farmer was just irate. So he was like faster than fast and yelled it out over and over. "You fooled around with my daughter." And Roger finally yelled out, "And you're Olehi too."
Oh, God.
So I say this at a banquet, and then people were laughing. But I remember we had a girl on the team, a French Canadian. I said, "Well, Vero didn't laugh. Let me explain the joke to Vero." So then I worked it and, basically told it a second time so Vero could laugh. But let's go. What else we got for this podcast? We got to get off Andy Fitzel would say we got to make it of value. The Bryan brothers, they were taught to play tennis by their mom, who spent a lot of time with Braden. And that's something that's in the Braden library is the young Bryan brothers hitting balls. Wayne Bryan's really nice. He says it wasn't for Vic or it wasn't for the Romanian doubles drills, his kids would be bagging groceries. That's not really true. I mean, they were musicians and scholars. Who spent a lot of time with the Bryan brothers is Austin Krajicek. At one point where he was house sitting. Michael Venus is the player from New Zealand, played at LSU. I know, I mean, he played with Clausen. And so anyway, the two Bryan brothers, they're practicing. They're practicing against Krajicek and Venus. And they start arguing and fighting. And one brother goes, I'm not playing with you anymore. I'm going to play with Krychek. And everyone goes, I'm not playing with you. I'm going to play with Venus. And the next thing you know is they're practicing and they just switch. And the brothers are just teeing off at each other. I mean, I think one of the stories, I think they were headed out to the U.S. Open to play in the finals. And Mike's smaller. Is that they started throwing punches. I grew up with the Fowler twins, and I remember this little guy hung around with all the time, Stevie Peluso. He didn't want to play street hockey because the Fowler boys were crazy. I said, Peluso, I got this covered. I said, they'll always be on opposite teams. They'll kill each other. They won't kill us. They'll kill each other. But I really believe that twin boys, they can take a punch because they grow up just hitting each other the whole time. But I think that about doubles all the time. I mean, come on. Didn't you watch the Bryan brothers? What did they win? 155 tournaments? And now college tennis, men's tennis, 1 through 3, they're playing one up, one back. And I'm going, how stupid can we be? I mean, like a John Isner with that serve, he stayed back. He wasn't so confident his backhand volley. Your turn, Jeffy, baby.
No, I was asking earlier. I said that I wanted to do, or you guys wanted to do the podcast on the French Open, the men's French Open final, but I said I couldn't because I wasn't watching it. I was watching the pickleball. So,
tell us about Riley DeHart. You sent him an email. How'd it go?
That was the same joke I sent to him.
Tell us one more time from the top.
I was just like, Riley, I just messaged him. I was like, Riley, what? Do you know what happened in the French Open final? I didn't watch it. I was watching pickleball.
Ryler and his wife, Megan, they're doing quite well at pickleball. I understand they're traveling around in Winnebago and doing clinics and playing money events. And
no, they're doing great. They have a whole management company now with them. And I'm super happy for them. I think, it's so hard to make money in tennis.
We had, and now there's just one, but we had 2 girls from Baylor University, and we had a little pickleball exhibition. I'm convinced that you can't beat him, you got to join him. Come on. I agree with Sam Query. Speaking of podcasts, he's on TV now. He's been so funny on that podcast. They have Nothing Major. He's got straight to the top. He's on TV all the time, but he is funny. Andres Barbosa says, so sad that the tennis public didn't know for the longest time that Query was such a funny guy. But Query said that if you know tennis, 90% of what you need to know for pickleball. Rachel Rohrbacher, she's highly ranked, and we brought her up in tennis, and we had a podcast with her. She's had us on our podcast. Thanks for teaching me conventional grips, Eastern grips. But yeah, one thing I don't, the pickleball, RSPA, the USPTA overnight, there's, how can you become experts in pickleball overnight? I mean, I guess you got to teach people to manage events, but I think that pickleball instruction right now is like tennis instruction was in the 70s. And tennis boomed, and everybody and their brother became an overnight tennis teacher.
It's like, how long have you been teaching pickleball? Oh, yeah, 15, 20 years. It's like, really? Sure about that?
I think that someone's got to come along and go, I know the modern game of pickleball.
It'll happen.
The modern pickle.
It's only a matter of time.
What else you got, Anderson? We got anything we want to share with our listeners?
I think something of, value. I mean, we maybe haven't covered a lot of gems in that, but we've had a few laughs and a few funny moments. And I always think back to getting to be around Jim Lehrer back at the Tennis Tech program. And I remember him saying that, that sense of enjoyment. And I think that it was an eye-opening experience for me this week here. And, we got 2 days to go in our sectional tournament. But one of our young coaches who is headed off to play at the Big 12, but she's coaching here in the summer as well. She's a great coach. She's got a number of years just being glued to the area where I teach each day, and but she came and she wrote me a note at the end of the day saying, "Hey, thank you for um, the education you gave, because it made her sad to be at the tournament and see all of the anxiety and tears." And she said, "The game doesn't have to be that way." And whether it's the Bryan brothers or I think that this era has certainly a little bit lost that sense of enjoyment of the battle. The battle is the fun part, and getting people to perceive it that way is so hard to do sometimes. But I think it's life changing when you can get in the heat of the battle and still maintain that smile like an Alcaraz does. I don't believe that's fake. I think he really wants to be right where he is at that moment. And yeah, somehow we gotta bring that element back too into the sport.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say about just competitiveness. Like, to me, there's a difference between competitiveness and wanting to win. Competitiveness is like
100%.
you genuinely just enjoy the process of competing. You hear great athletes talk about it, and they don't talk about, man, that win was amazing. They're like, wow, that was crazy. That match, that game, like that was so competitive. It was so much fun. I think people mistake, wanting to win at all costs with loving to compete, which to me just are not the same things, But
I think one thought of competition, the brain typing. We've had several podcasts on brain typing. That's one thing that Vic, he traveled with Niedagle's book for 20, 25 years. He's so curious, and he would jump from one thing to the next, but he never really left the work of what Niedagle was doing. But myself as a Jay, if I was going to compete, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to work. I'm not, the P's will just say, let's go.
Yeah.
Just give me the ball. Let's play now. The Jays are like, okay, we're going to compete. I'm going to get organized here. Yeah, the French Open, not 5 hours and 29 minutes. I've flown back from Hawaii. I have to say, I nodded off for only for a little bit, but it wasn't really so much jet lag. But our flight was canceled, so I was with Yvonne, and so we had like 5 hours. So they were going to give us a hotel, and I told the guy, I said, we'll just rough it. We'll just wait right here. Okay, we're going to go here, go there. It's like 5 hours is nothing, just hanging out at the airport. You crash anywhere. That's from my van days. But 5 hours and 29 minutes with, unbelievable tennis. I didn't get to see the women's tennis. I know that I had a lot of things sent to me on the phone, the stats and how it was up and down. And, it is tough to close out a match. But yeah, the technicians, Sabalenka is so powerful. And then Coco Gauff is like so athletic and so competitive. But Alcaraz, he's not as wristy. Bradenism, we're at war with the wrist. Now it's just the opposite. The wristier your forehand, the better. But center just certainly has an advantage on the serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. Alcaraz, he's made some adjustments on the serve, but it doesn't seem like he's been able to just turn. Like he can't get away from that trophy position where he just kind of bends that hip straight out.
Yeah, it's some Shane Puller with the elbow going down.
Yeah.
Like the people stop a bus. Your elbow should only go up one time. It shouldn't go down up.
Yeah.
Then get that synchronized with your body. Great tennis from the past. But certainly, the equipment, the strings, the rackets, it's kind of like you think back about people trying to be a pole vaulter with bamboo. Then they went to fiberglass and then graphite. So the equipment has something to do with it. But you just think about 5 hours and 29 minutes, just the mental focus. Amazing.
Yeah, and the level was pretty high at the end.
Yeah, and then center, he dug himself out to take it to. Was it 12 points in the breaker? I think it was 10-2. Is that right?
Yeah.
It just kind of fell Alcaraz's way in that breaker. But no, he dug it out. I thought it was, didn't think it was going to be tight at one point in the fifth. But that's where, we have 4 Super Bowls. I mean, now Wimbledon's coming around. That's always exciting.
I think a lesson too for kids, parents. Again, we're in this era where kids go to a national tournament and the parents feel like they have to arrive a week early. And they're going, from really one state to another where the weather's very similar and everything. And but the finals of the women's is on, and on another option of the tennis channel, they're already on the grass courts. I think that the ability to adapt is, we talked about the sense of enjoyment. I think adaptability is, and I know brain typing certainly factors into that. But I think that the one dimensionality of specializing in sports has limited adaptability, and from the athletes that are typically, only in the tennis culture. I think other athletes, when a kid's playing basketball, baseball, football, or tennis baseball or tennis basketball, when they're doing other sports, I think you learn to adapt quicker. And I think of those guys out there. I mean, they, adapt, go with the flow, be able to take their punches, take their licks, so to speak. And boy, that resilience and adaptability are they're such key things. Huh?
Europe, years ago, you go from one country to the next, you'd have to exchange currency. And now with the euro, it's different. But you just think about a kid going to a tournament, they're going to get off the plane and rent a Hertz car from name brand. They're going to check into Embassy Suites. That night they're going to go to, they got to get Chipotle for lunch for sure. And they're going to go to Outback. And you're right. One American city to the next, it's pretty much the same. Then also we're hardcourt society. Hardcourt. But yeah, the more that can be thrown at you, the better. And how's it go? Should you prepare the kid for the road or the road for the kid?
Mm-hmm.
And we have that backwards.
I love soccer and tennis. I think that's a great combo when kids are young. I think it was Vic was saying, like, you put a tennis racket in a soccer player's hand and they'll move their feet first. And then tennis players, if they don't have that, they'll just move their hands towards the ball. They don't actually move their body. It's because the brain's so used to sending signals down low, for the feet.
Yeah, with certainly Federer, growing up in Switzerland, I know as he older, he didn't ski because the fear of injury. But a few times I've been in Switzerland, everybody goes skiing. Djokovic's father and mother, they ran a restaurant at the bottom of the ski hill. Pancakes in the morning and pizza in the evening, and look at center. I had someone tell me, well, he skied, so that couldn't have helped him with his tennis mobility. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Yeah, but one thing is just the fear factor. Just the fear factor. The Russians back in the Soviet system is where everyone's going to go through body awareness. There was tumbling or a entry level of gymnastics, if you will. Making the kid an athlete. I was talking to a dad just today about, Lansdorp, talking about Sampras, where Sampras didn't play every sport under the sun when he was coming up. But then you just think the whole package, his parents were immigrants, and I think it's Gus, Stella, his older brother didn't play, but Stella, I always tell people, Sampras was one in the world for 6 years, but there was more than 6 years where he wasn't number one in his house. But I think exposure, Billie Jean King, you got to see it to be it. When Elliot Telscher, and great player, top 10 player in the world, and played at UCLA. So, but he grew up at the Kramer Club. He grew up under Lansdorp. Braden was there early on. But so Pete gets his, like a first break, it was out at Indian Wells, and he beat Pete Sampras, but there's no off factor. He grew up watching the guy train, and so got him off to a really good start. But it's interesting. You just talk about Pete, like throwing a football. You have to think now is that people don't remember Pete. They don't remember Andre Young. You're teaching young kids, and the Sampras serve, and just then, or you coming into Sampras volley, and it's like when Edberg, I should say, Federer was being coached by Edberg. He was asked, "Are you going to come into the net as much as Stefan?" And he just said, "If I could volley like him, I would." And there's all those pearls out there. That's what I really like. I like the backstories. I like the character of tennis. So Anderson, what's your joke? We had Jeff's joke and my joke. You have a joke?
All you really did, Steve, was say the kid was Roger Federer to make it a tennis joke. So I don't even know if that counts. But
you're Ole too. Come on, that's pretty good. You're Ole too. Have you heard the Swiss Fielders?
You have to timestamp that.
That was a good one. No, I just said that, it seems like there's a million funny things that happen to you in your lifetime on the course and being around people. But, that instance where sometimes you just want to, like I said, crawl under a rock. I don't really, there's just a million stories like that. I remember first getting to Brookhaven and there was no online school or anything. So 75% of the day was teaching ladies teams and Dion and I came within he came a month after me, and we had like 6 lady teams in a row every Monday, and it was just nonstop. And he was gone for a few days, and one of the ladies' team said, "Where's Dion?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, and you can't tell him I told you, but he got a rug, a toupee that surgically attaches, and it got infected." I said, "But I'm sure you could tell because Dion's always had this unique hair." And I said, he should be back in a week or so. And I said, just make sure you don't say it. Tell him that I told you. And I swear to you, the next day, when a week later, he comes through the door, and these ladies, to see them. I wish I would have had a video camera, or a phone that I could have filmed it with, because everybody, as Dion walked in, and, they were just eyeballing his head. And, it's like I give him a hard time about that because he's got this hair where it looks like it's just a muskrat set on top of his head. And, of course he throws out, I'm bald headed and have a big nose, but, just I have more stories than jokes. I don't really have any specific tennis jokes.
I used to practice with a guy named Brady. He was so funny, and he practiced with this guy all the time. And these older guys. When I was a perennial tennis bum at Boca, I was proud of it. I was 20. I was hanging out with guys who were 70, and learning so much. So this guy Brady, they said, "Where's your buddy?" He goes, "He died," and he did die. So he'd gone. He's from another country. He got home for like 3 weeks. So the guy shows back at the club. But everybody for 3 weeks, he goes, "Sorry to hear about your friend." "Oh yeah." His wife's doing it. He just played along with it. His wife's okay. His kids. It's gonna be tough. So the guy walks into the tennis club. I think with kids today, they used to say that about us. I think there's so much political correctness. There's no sarcasm. There's no come on. There's no chirping. Like I'll introduce a kid. There's only 2 kids in the family. I go, this is Gerbosh, and he's very proud. He's the second smartest kid in his family. And no one even, that's where it's like, Eddie Fitzgerald says, "Steve, you have to realize when you're talking to kids, this is what they hear. Wah, 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 wah. They're not listening to anything you're saying." Or I'll say, well, I'll even do this. I said, "I want to see who laughs first." I played tennis like Arthur Ashe's brother, Jack Ashe. And then it's like, you look around, the kids, they don't get it. They don't get it. And the worse yet, instead of playing like Boris Becker, I play like Doris Decker. No, I think of the stories too. Then you're trying to keep them clean. Then there's some stories that are perhaps maybe not G-rated, but storytelling for mental toughness, Jim Lair. Everything turns into a story. I remember, and it's people say, "Wow, how do you have such a great memory?" I tease, say, "Well, I have total recall. I can recall totally what I want to." But it's adrenaline. It's just important. You just see these mistakes time after time, and it's like, Yvonne's 3 years later. Yvonne, how many times can you tell someone they don't get to the green zone? How many times, the kid comes back to visit and they haven't been doing their routines. But the psychic income, you got to hang in there for the 3% of the people who do what you tell them to do. And, yeah, but you got to have a little bit of fun. That there's a pretty fine line between sanity and insanity. I tell kids like daily, I have spent my life, I become dramatic and sensationalistic. By the time I was 26, I'd been trained to teach by Vandermeer, Van Horn, and Braden. So I've been, I still do the same thing. I mean, maybe we've added a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but fundamentals are fundamentals, applications, practice is practice. I've spent my life saying the right things to the wrong people. And I just say, we're doing something like say, okay, we just take kids up against the curtain, up against the fence. And, they trace their swing and it's like, boom, everybody, okay, we got it. It took us like 15 minutes. We taught everybody body balance. We touched upon the grips, but then we got right up against the fence and that swing is vertical. Boom, instant tennis. And then you bring them in and go, but you won't do it. And they don't. Set up these routines. This is what you need to do. Another thing I'm telling kids all the time is the TV when I was a kid was called the Idiot Box. There's only 3 stations. And on Saturday morning, that was the only time you watch cartoons. But if you were pretty busy playing sports, you didn't get a chance to see cartoons. Now, a kid can watch cartoons anytime they want. And it's, so I think it's more difficult now to be disciplined. And I think kids are very passive because the parents, my father, I mean, on a daily basis, three brothers, he would say, this house is not a gymnasium. I grew up in lousy weather and, take that football outside, and, but kids get on some type of, electronic gadget and they're pretty passive. They're just locked in. But let's wrap this up as a quickie. We've had these 4-hour podcasts. We've been advised that we maybe need to shorten it. Probably shouldn't use the word quickie. I have to edit that.
Timestamp. Actually, it was fine until you just said that.
Oh, okay. You're right.
How has this thing not been canceled yet?
Yeah. Well, we only have 7 listeners. And that's personifying a golden retriever. So it's six and a dog.
VictoryTennisPrograms.com. Once again, if you made it this far in the podcast, just contact me through the site. I'll sign you up for any of the paid courses.
How expensive are the courses?
They're not that expensive, but $30. All the information's in the free one anyway. So just to teaching kids tennis course. So you don't really need the paid ones anyway. Man, I'm horrible at marketing, aren't I?
I went to a course as someone's guest, the Shark Tank, and the first year Tennis Intelligence applied, it made $50,000. Second year, $25,000. Third, $25,000. So it made $100,000. Seriously, it was just on the shelf, no marketing. We just put it there, and you just know it's not high quality as far as I would like to think the educational merit is there, but it's not too slick. And I just started giving it out for free. And this guy, none of the famous 4 or 5 panelists from the Shark Tank were there. It wasn't like Mark Cuban was talking to me. But this one guy goes, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. He goes, you're making money and you took it down. And I think, Andy Fitzgerald's always saying, just doesn't want to be one of them. Don't want to be the how's it go? The internet tennis guru. I think it's really sad that a lot of people that are on the internet sharing tennis teaching information, they don't teach tennis. That's one thing we say about what we put out. And Yvonne and I, we really haven't had a team around us. We've been pretty much a 2-man band, got along with everybody, but we haven't had the support. But, you said it, Jeff, is that we were just to show pre and post videos from our archives. Because people come in and it's like, whoop, they were here for a week and this is how they hit the ball. They got here. Now this is how they're hitting the ball. And I have my line is we wish them well and say the operation was a success, but the patient died because they just don't practice. But we're one of the few that I know, Dave, you guys do it through your Instagram. I'm not on Instagram, but you show people hitting the ball well.
Hitting the ball pretty well. Yeah.
Pretty well. Okay.
Yeah.
Coach is coach. It could be better.
Could be better. Let's talk about what our ITA course. Let's pump that a little bit. Maybe we should talk about we're a nonprofit. We'll take donations. Go to our website. You can donate money. But yeah, we put together. Yvonne did lion's share of the work for sure. Dave was on it. We got his profile, and Dave Secker, Matt Clore, Coach Ilya, and quite a few juniors. But the thing was, right away, is it's so long. 71 minutes. It's so long. There's some music. You would think it would be, mandatory for tennis camp staff to look at something like that. But I think the big thing is that let's make it fun. But when the umpire says Braden, the umpire says ready, play, how much fun is it going to be if you can't even hit the ball? I mean, Vandermeer, you got to get them so they can rally. If they can rally, you get them hooked on tennis. But if they can't rally, they're going to find something else to do.
Yeah, dear USTA, game-based does not mean play the game and you will be good at it. Game-based means use games as a model to teach the skills.
Well, with that, tennis is marketed to the child. Let's make it fun, the repeat business. A lot of times there's more lectures on how to make money than how to make players. We got to bring it back. I always tell parents that if your kids really like the lesson, they like the training, that means it was lousy. If they go home and they're complaining, that means it was really, really good.
Everything in tennis, I think the high performance, I said this to one of the coaches out of the tournament. I said, I feel like the high performance just gets too much love, that term high performance, and the people that think they're in that tier. And it's nice to be on the phone with everybody on this podcast, but Jeff, knowing, seeing some of your work that you've done and the joy that you get out of helping every kid learn the sport and hit a ball. To me, I don't care whether we consider ourselves player development coaches or whatever terms, or mainly even adults only, but if everybody could take that kind of joy into their tennis teaching each day, and I feel the sport would just be so much healthier. So
yeah,
great job on that.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. But my experience has just been so different from what I think the intentions of some governing bodies are. Like I think I found kids love to learn. They love information. They love challenge if it's presented in the right way. And I have kids leave my court, I think enjoying it all the time if it's done in the right way. So I've never experienced that. I've never had the experience that I needed to, use a certain way of teaching them to make them have fun. I just had to enjoy their company, and they enjoyed my company, and they learned, and they enjoyed learning the sport the right way. So I think if anything, coaches need to learn to, present better maybe, but I don't think it has anything to do with like just trying to dumb things down so much that they develop bad habits.
Of course, we talked about the UTR in previous podcasts, the anxiety levels. I like to ask kids, do you only have fun if you win? You got to have fun just being out there, fun getting better, fun competing. Vandermeer, this is certainly reinforcement for so many people listening to our podcast, but trickery. If you have prizes and you have a form tournament, or then you have target tournaments, Burwash, the late Burwash, the personality of the pro, you got to be able to package it. You got to be able to sell it. You got to make it fun, but they got to learn at the same time. It can't be glorified babysitting. We've said this over and over again. Game-based makes money. it brings people back, but they don't know. They don't know. They're going in circles. That invisible tsunami is coming because they don't have skills. But game-based and form-based should be called principle-based. And, I like, one of these girls from Baylor University, she hits a shot and I go, against one of these 16-year-old boys who was here, I go, Swiatek would have got that, to be able to just put things in perspective. I think one other thing too, along those lines is, I would like to be able to be competitive. I wish they had tournaments for teaching beginners. Okay. All right.
Bring it.
Okay. This is how the tournament will work. You will each get 8 beginners. We'll film them the first few minutes on the serve or whatever, say forehand. And then where are they at the end of 45 minutes? And, because you can measure improvement. You got to document it. But I think most people run the other way when it comes down to teaching beginners. And I know you've said it before, Dave, is you got to give back. We have to have people give to the game. With the USTA, I mean, I never understood. It's not learn to play; it's play to learn. You got to do both. You got to approach it from both ends. It can't just be learn how to play. You got to play to learn.
And I really think that we talk about long-term development and doing it the right way, but it's not like it takes, especially for like an adult beginner. It's not like you have to have them hit off a cone for a year. But that bell curve of like learning the wrong way versus improvement versus learning the right way, I mean, just spend a week with some basic fundamentals and you just see people accelerate. Once they start playing, they just have so much more acceleration in their improvement, that less injury, more enjoyment, they get better. I just think that's it's just, to me, it's so obvious. If people don't learn tennis the right way, they don't stay in it. They don't enjoy it. They get frustrated. They dropped out, which is obvious.
One time, I don't know how many videos I've made. It was actually with you, Dave. We were running an academy in Boca Raton. And I certainly had my background with my local high school coach, Sam Volo. He loved video. This goes back to the 60s. And then working for Braden, filmed everything. But then George Wilson, who's in charge of the AV department, audiovisual department, Tyler Junior College. So Dave and I are in Boca, and overnight we're the 3rd most prestigious academy. There's so many now, but it was Voluntaries in Saddlebrook. So we just started shooting film off film. And because when they would leave, they would come in and I said, okay, I'm going to, and it was just on a VHS tape. And I'm going to go through your forehands and your backhands and your serves. And with people, coming back to over and over again, start the course, stay the course. I would say for the most part, the 5 E's of player development. Okay, you've got enjoyment. It's not hit and giggle. You've got education experience. Got to be in a safe environment, but exposure. Most people have not seen their sport played and, more importantly, practiced at a high level. Whatever sport it is, it's still, they're just going over the fundamentals. And the old John Wooden thing, the fundamental doesn't change. It's that you have to execute that fundamental at a faster rate. And tennis kids, they just don't get it. They think, well, I outgrew that. No. You go to college, you take a baseball tee or a cone. You take all the things we profess, like say a sock, the old baseball throwing, a basket of balls. You look for a wall, you look for a mirror, and as soon as you get to college, these universities that have their programs. It's like walking around Olympic Village. It's just their facilities. There's no backboard. There's just no backboard. We have the portable backboards. People buy them, they don't use them. It's, like Andy Fitzgerald, I love how he says, you just don't want to get a bad rep. We like to tell people that goes in the good pile, that goes in the bad pile. Just talk to kids that way. That goes in the bad pile. I know this, we were in Hawaii, we got to send, we told these people that you could look it up. All you got to do is go online and look up the habit poem. There's several versions of it. And the habit poem should be on everybody's refrigerator. But with that, say, well, we'll send it to you. So then if we send it to the parents and we tell the parents a second time, how many times do you have to reinforce a message before they get it? Put this on the refrigerator. Never take it down. And, the kids just need to just understand how that works. We tell people along the same lines, the parents, get a copy of Daniel Cole's book, The Talent Code. Make your car a classroom. I stay in touch with Rob Krajicek, whose son, this time last summer, he was in that famous match he's playing with Rajiv Ram against Alcaraz and Nadal. But they did everything we said. They got one of those backboards. They did the driveway routines. They made you were there. You probably have some wins over Austin.
I actually dominated Austin when he was 10 and I was 21. I was 21 years old. So I'm indirectly number one in the world in doubles.
You owned it. You owned him.
Well, you have wins over Andy Roddick too. Your mother says 2. You think 1, but you beat Roddick.
I think I lost to him once. My mother thinks I beat him twice. I don't know what the truth is, but
you had 4 or 5 years on him at that time. He was 9.
We don't have to give all the details.
All the details. Hold him back. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. Maybe we've shared something with, we got other things to do here. Hopefully these podcasts are worthwhile. What do you think, Louis? Do you think we should continue or should we, we're going to be at 5. We're coming close to 260. So should we just pack it in after 5 years?
No way. We're just getting started here.
Just getting started.
Yeah. Building momentum.
Yeah. We're going to get Anderson's profile.
Yeah.
His nose is
funny guy.
His nose is as big as mine. So
it might be bigger.
We go ahead. Let's go with Anderson first. You wrap this one up.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that were said tonight, whether it was the coaching, the playing, but I go back to something that we spoke about along the lines of exercise, education, enjoyment. Like for coaches listening, I think that we gotta always master that blend. We got to be a mixologist of how we put exercise, education, and enjoyment into each lesson, every ball we feed. The bad rep and the good rep. And I think that, every time we feed a ball to somebody, we have to be very mindful of what we're trying to accomplish. And for the players that are listening, I think that, what Jeff said about, competitiveness, love to compete more than you love to win. Winning and losing are they're just after effects of the battle. And it's just a reality of sport. But the joy is in competing. And for parents that, maybe listening, I would say that you don't want to take the sport out of the sport for your child. Hold them tight to their commitment to the sport, to their goals, but let the sport be a sport. We all got into this game because something fun, something attracted us to it, and sometimes we can make it a little bit of a job for the kid. You can be an animal pursuing your goals, but sport's always got to feel like a sport, or it's just not going to be sustainable. So that's really what I think about when I wrap up kind of versions of what we spoke about today.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Words of wisdom from North Dakota. What do you have, Louis? We'll sign this thing off. Laugh and win. You come from the school of laugh and win, Vic Braden, baby.
Yeah, love me some laughing and winning. But I'll close with this. People might see millions of pickleball courts being constructed right now, but I see millions of little kid tennis courts being constructed. So we need to work that deal out where we get to use those courts for 10 and under tennis to get more of your little kids into tennis.
No, that's a great point. I outfit, they're calling themselves light tennis, where you can go out on a pickleball court, play with a foam ball. You take tennis rackets. Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. I have to ask Yvonne, I just sneezed, if he's going to edit that. I one time was on a train in Germany and guy sneezed. There was just two of us in this compartment. And I said, Gesundheit. And he said, where are you from in America? But here's a laugh for you. Lewis and I go way back. And Michael Costa writes a book. He actually wrote, this is his second book, but he's not telling anybody. He was with me. He was such a recognition freak. I said, Costa, you need to write a book. So I have a copy of his first book. It's 101 Tennis Tips by Michael Costa. And so Lewis asked me, because he said, have you read Costa's book? And I just said, Sam. He just started laughing. We both started laughing so hard. So I think we are doing Costa a favor right now. There might be a few listeners that will buy his book now, because I want to just tell you that I'm Sam. I'm Sam. And I think if he had a better comedic writer, he would call me Dick. Because his name's not Sam, but we'll just call him Dick.
Well, he did call you Dick, but that just wasn't your name in the whole section.
But that's so distorted. He did have a chapter where he apologizes to one of his teammates, Alex, that whole thing. But it was a very dark time. I mean, but more credit to him. He was Craig Tiley, who was with us for 7 years. He told all his guys, you're going to come play for us. We want you to pursue pro tennis. And one of his guys came after he'd been in France and after he'd been in Turkey. And he lost to the guy, you were there, Carrollwood, part of Tampa. He lost to this kid playing on the Illinois team. He came and he lost to the guy sweeping courts for us. And he lost to the guy stringing rackets for us. And I said, this is what you need to do. You need to play anybody and everybody. And, you don't need to go play pro tennis when you're not ready for pro tennis. And he got so much better. The next summer, he came back for the whole summer and just worked on his game. It wasn't like we're playing futures. Braden, if you're playing futures, the 15,000, maybe now they're 25. If it's your third year and you're playing futures, you have no future. So. But anyway, that'll sell them a few books for our listeners. Is that
mature audiences only?
Yeah. If you want to read the whole book, but just that one segment on me picking on me. But
I don't know. I thought it was like Sam was a hard. I was like, well, he kind of is a hard.
Sam, he actually in that book he threw Klaassen under the bus a little bit because he played a little bit of doubles with Klaassen. He got fired because. I'll go quickly. We wanted to have someone who was over 25 because renting a car. We wanted someone who was not from the US of A because we have a tendency to be a little spoiled here. And we wanted somebody who didn't play college tennis because college tennis players are also a little spoiled. And John Doran, he qualified he was over 25. He was from Ireland, but he played at Harvard. But by the time we talked to him, he was leaving the circuit. To digress, he actually made changes in his game while he was, going back to Wall Street, but he's still playing Davis Cup. So I go to Orlando, and I've told this story before. Costa, he didn't chart the first day, so I go to Tampa, Orlando. I go back the second day, and he wasn't charting Klaassen's match. And I said, "You fired." He laughed at me, but he never played doubles with Raven again. But when he was going through that rant, I think part of his book was research. I think part of it was like his podcast. It was just a rant. But he said he was shocked, when he found out Raven got the Australian Open final. But he didn't mention that he also got to the Wimbledon final. So that was a lack of research.
Well, I mean, he also said, when criticizing yourself, he's like, I don't think I need to know that the tennis court is 6.5 feet longer cross court than that. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm just like, Costa, it's 4.5 feet. That's probably why you kept missing 2 feet long cross court every time.
No, and I've seen him on the tennis channel, and obviously he's very successful. More power to him. Tall, good-looking guy. Is that he's from Michigan. I told him that you should get a handle on this information because he is still connected to tennis, but that would just be a feather in his cap. But it's not rocket science to start studying some, just to take. I gave a copy of Tennis for the Future to a college player from Baylor the other day, and Dave Secker said about the book several times, they just need to change the photos. I mean, the information, it just stands the test of time. I mean, the court is the court. The laws of physics, how's it go? The dimensions court and physical laws. But anyway, another podcast in the books. Jeff, it's great to have you visit a second time.
Nice to be here, Steve.
We're talking about visiting Anderson's place. We got some players that we need to take to Dallas to play matches, but that won't be until after it cools off a little bit in Dallas.
We can get a little reunion here.
What's the temperature in Dallas today?
106 heat index, probably 96 regular or actual. But
that's at 7 a.m. What's it like at noon?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here till October.
No, it builds character. Dave and Jeff, thank you very much. Listeners, thank you. We hope you got something out of another GreatBase Tennis podcast.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, have a good night.
Everybody, good night. Thank you.
Bye.